In Greece, a major earthquake measuring 5.5 on the Richter scale hit Kalamata on the evening of September the 13th. At least 20 people were killed, 6 of them in a 5-storey building that collapsed during the main shock. Fortunately, however, many residents of Kalamata were out in the open air attending the opening of a new ferry line, which reduced the number of casualties. Nissan became the first Japanese car manufacturer to open a plant in Europe, with Margaret Thatcher opening the new factory in Sunderland. It was a rare piece of good news, a week ahead of the latest unemployment figures showing they had risen again to over 3,280,000, though economists were predicting general economic growth for the next year, allaying fears of a full-on recession. And in the English Midlands, 2 high-speed express trains collided at Colwich Junction thanks to a signalling error. Miraculously, despite the devastation, only one person, Eric Good, the driver of one of the trains, was killed. The F1 circus arrived at Estoril for the last European Grand Prix of the season. Last year's race had been a success, in spite of the awful weather, and had seen Ayrton Senna take his maiden win. The Brazilian would be hoping to repeat the feat to keep himself in the running for the 1986 title. Never one to miss a good PR opportunity, Bernie Eccleston rounded up the 4 title contenders, sat them on the pit wall and rustled up some photographers. And the resulting photos have become some of the most iconic of Formula One in the 1980s. Frank Williams himself was in attendance too, enabling the BBC's Murray Walker to get a great piece to camera from the cockpit of the Williams, with the driver on each side and Frank alongside. After a certain amount of horseplay, that is.
Here in Portugal, this is round 14 of the 16-race World Championship and the end of the European season. Here in Portugal, this is round 14 of the 16-race World... And here beside me, as you can see, are the 2 Williams drivers, each with 4 wins to their credit, and one of whom is most likely to win the World Championship. But which one? Championship leader, Nigel Mansell, or second, Nelson Piquet?
That's enough!
As to the rest, the only change to the field from Monza was that Alan Berg was back in the Azella, Alex Caffey's hefty sponsorship package having financed the team for the rest of the season, while Rosberg's McLaren had been painted in a one-off livery, swapping the red Marlboro chevrons for a metallic gold to promote the Marlboro Lights brand. Unfortunately, it didn't really read on TV, ending up looking a bit like it had been left out in the sun for too long. Elsewhere, Ferrari had confirmed the rumours that Gerhard Berger would be joining Michele Alboreto next year, with Stefan Johansson moving on. There was no official word on the Swede's destination. McLaren to replace Rosberg was still the best rumour, but some thought that Ron Dennis had his eye on Senna instead, who was said to be frustrated by Lotus's reliability issues and the impending loss of the Renault engines. The Honda plants had gone well in the Williams cars, but Lotus and Renault had been working together for years, and it would be a major upheaval for the team to move to the new engines. Friday qualifying saw the Williams cars on top of the charts as usual, with Mansell on provisional pole and Berger 4th behind Prost to continue the Benetton's good run of form. Times went down by 2 to 3 seconds on Saturday though, with Senna putting in a heroic lap to take pole by 0.8 seconds from Mansell, with Prost and Berger maintaining their 3rd and 4th places. Teo Fabi lined up 5th, with Piquet a frustrated 6th, 1.5 seconds off Senna's pace. Rosberg and Johansson were next, with Patrese and Arnoux making up the top 10, Alliot going well again in 11th, ahead of Warwick, Alboreto down in 13th, the Minardis looking handy in 16th and 18th, the Arrows is back in their unfortunately more customary 21st and 22nd places, Capelli once again qualifying well in 25th ahead of Rothengatter, and Berg, as usual, miles adrift at the back, 10 seconds off pole and 3 seconds off his teammate. With all 27 cars once again permitted to start in light of AGS's temporary status, nobody would be left on the pit wall when the race began. With no starting grid dramas this time, the lights went green and away they went, and both Senna and Mansell left big black marks on the track as they scorched off the line, with Mansell taking the lead and Senna slotting in behind, while Piquet shot up to 4th behind Berger. The leading pair quickly opened up a gap to the Austrian as Senna harried Mansell around lap 1. Soon, though, Mansell was able to ease away from Senna and was looking comfortable in the lead. Behind them, Berger led Piquet and Prost, both of whom would be keen to get past and get after the leaders. Berger, like all the other Pirelli runners, was on the hardest possible compound and might well be going the whole race on one set of tyres, so they couldn't rely on waiting for the tyre stops to get past. AGS's brief foray into 1986 ended prematurely with a transmission failure on lap 7, leaving the little 7-man team to pack up and prepare for next year. And over the next couple of laps, more of the usual suspects departed the race. Gintani with an engine failure after 8 laps, Rothengatter with a transmission failure after 9, and Jones with a brake problem that sent him into a spin after 10. In the meantime, on lap 8, Piquet finally found a way past Berger and set off in pursuit of Senna and Mansell, some 8.6 seconds ahead by now, as Prost closed up to see what he could do about the Benetton, which he managed off camera, followed by Rosberg in the gold McLaren, who had put on a spurt and was now threatening his teammate. Berger was now 6th, with Teo Fabi chasing him, with the 2 Ferraris of Johansson and Alboreto close on his tail, but the leaders had become rather strung out and the race had already settled down into a rhythm as drivers concentrated on preserving their tyres, which were starting to wear much more quickly than expected. Martin Brundle livened up proceedings by having a Renault flame out shortly after being lapped by Mansell, and although Senna managed to close up a little as the Brit made his way through traffic, it wasn't enough to make a difference. On lap 28, Derek Warwick became the first man to make a tyre stop, putting on a new set of the hard Pirellis, followed by Alboreto for new Goodyears. Piquet was the first of the front-runners, coming in from 3rd for a cracking stop on lap 31 and dropping to 4th. Then it was Senna in from 2nd, a slightly slower stop, meaning that if Mansell had a good one, he'd be sitting pretty. Senna had come out 3rd behind Prost, and when he stopped he managed to stay ahead, but was on cold tyres with the Lotus right on his gearbox, and it didn't take Ayrton long to reclaim 2nd place. Mansell's was another great stop, and when all the major players had stopped, by lap 34, the order was still Mansell, Senna, Prost, Piquet, Johansson and Rosberg in the top 6, with Fabi, Berger and Alboreto behind. Piquet also made his way past Prost a lap later, and the 2 of them were both right behind Senna as he chased Mansell, still 11 seconds ahead in the lead, and still setting fastest laps. Prost dropped back a bit as he had trouble lapping Patrese, while Piquet was climbing all over the back of Senna, who in turn was making his Lotus as wide as possible. They continued past more backmarkers, with Senna trying to interpose the slower cars between himself and Piquet, and the gaps expanding and contracting as they eased their way through. Rosberg disappeared from 5th with engine trouble, promoting Berger and Johansson, only for the pair to tangle a few laps later, putting Gerhard out, though Stefan was still able to continue, dropping behind his teammate Alboreto. The race had once again settled down into a bit of a procession as the second half wore on. At one point the director seemed to fall asleep, leaving the camera on the main straight running as Piquet pulled out to pass Senna. By the time the cameras picked them up again, Nelson was behind, so clearly the move hadn't come off. When Piquet was balked lapping Palmer, Senna drew ahead again, and with just 7 laps to go, Nelson was going to have to step on it a bit if he wanted a chance to take 2nd. Pushing too hard on worn tyres, he lost the back end and ended up in the gravel trap. He kept the car running, flicked the back end round and rejoined, having dropped behind Prost in the process, and left himself a lot to do, not just in this race, but in the championship overall. And all the while, Mansell was cruising away in the lead, looking completely untroubled, and while Prost had Senna in sight, he was not in a position to challenge in the dying laps. As Mansell swept home to take his 5th win of the year, the Black Lotus suddenly slowed. He was out of fuel. Prost swept past to take 2nd, Piquet took a very lucky 3rd, and Senna trundled in 4th, his title challenge officially over. The 2 Ferraris picked up the remaining points, demonstrating that at least they seemed to have got the reliability sorted out. So, with 2 races left, Nigel Mansell led the championship by 10 points from Piquet, with Prost just a point behind him. But that was Mansell's 11th points finish of the year, and the rules said that only the top 11 results could be counted, and he would have to start discarding results, assuming he scored in the remaining races. His 2 points from Detroit and 3 from Monaco would be the ones to go. Williams, meanwhile, sealed the Constructors' Championship that they had looked pretty untouchable for all season, with Ferrari consolidating their 4th place from Ligier. The teams would reconvene in Mexico in 3 weeks' time, where a win for Mansell would seal him the 1986 title.